Let me put my
Okay.
tinfoil hat on.
Tinfoil hat. Katie's here. She's got her tinfoil hat. And you might need it for round one because that is actually what it's about. The reason that you could need a tinfoil hat. It's the Tuesday edition here on Zero Blog 30. And today we have 3 rounds in the magazine. Round number 1, Congressional hopeful involved in a conspiracy theory that gains mind control, causes earthquakes, and alters the climate. This fella is trying to paint himself as a normie. Not a very normie industry to be involved with a bunch of conspiracy theories. Round number 2, we've got some lovers scorned in Russia. They have the most ruthless payback scheme I have ever heard. And I think Lance Corporal, PFC, airmen, all those folks, their wives are going to be paying attention, or their husbands, or their partners. You never know who it's going to be. Round number 3, American golfers got shit on for months for playing golf that was funded by Saudi Arabia. There's 500 U.S. generals or regular 06 officers and above that are working for Saudi Arabia right now about defense techniques, including former Navy SEALs who are doing soft training that are teaching them how to be special operators. I think that's a much bigger deal than what old Dyson G. is doing, I would say. But that's just me. And all that is brought to you by our good friends at WhistlePig. WhistlePig is the best whiskey on the market. You've got Bonnie and Clyde, Butch Cassidy and Sundance, Brady and Gronk. But the next legendary duo is 100% rye and 100% proof bourbon, all from WhistlePig. It's fantastic. It stands taller than bolder than the pack. No other bourbon and rye duo on the market offers this big of age, proof, and mash for a full send-on flavor. Piggyback 100% rye is the savory side of whiskey, while the Piggyback 100 proof bourbon is the sweeter side of whiskey. 100% for all for 100. Piggyback 100% rye and Piggyback 100% proof bourbon is 100% of the good stuff. Get your bottles at shop.whistlepig.com or at a local retailer. At some point during this year that WhistlePig is the presenting partner, I'm going to nail that last part. At one of these days, I'm going to fucking nail it. It's so many hundreds, but it is 100% delicious as well. It's WhistlePig.
True. If you can get the whole speech from you can't handle the truth, then
True. Yeah, I think I can manage there.
You can get that.
So this first story that we're going to talk about, I haven't heard of this conspiracy theory at all. But before we get into the conspiracy theory, I want to go over the top conspiracy theories, Kate, and see which ones you could or do believe in.
Let me put my tinfoil hat on.
Tinfoil hat. Katie's here. She's got her tinfoil hat, and you might need it for round 1 because that is actually what it's about. The reason that you could need a tinfoil hat. This is one of the reasons, the one we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So the first one up, this is definitely going to be no, or you're going to get kicked off the podcast. Myths about the Holocaust. That's the number 1 conspiracy theory in the world right now.
Yeah, that's fucked up. That's just super fucked.
We don't deny that at all.
We don't deny the Holocaust. No,
yeah. And I don't even think you could joke about that one.
No.
Like, it's so fucked up you can't even joke about it. The next one, CIA had a hand in JFK's assassination. I think you could joke around about that. It's been long enough.
I don't know if I joke about it, but like I don't put it past him. The CIA's done some shady shit, man.
They have. The moon landing being faked.
I want to say I believe we landed on the moon, but the shadows, chaps, the shadows in the background.
I know.
The moon and the sun were aligned in such a way that the shadows should have been different, chaps.
There's no gravity. How's the flag just sitting there straight?
I think it was America's first and finest work of green screen. Okay.
I mean, it's hard to say that if you landed on the moon in nearly 1970 and you can't go back in 50 years, why in the world would you not go back? Like, the technology, you couldn't even put a full record of like a CD on one side of an album back then. And you could go to the fucking moon. The only thing that keeps me completely not conspiracy theory is the fact that Buzz Aldrin punched that guy. Remember?
That's true. That's true. But Buzz Aldrin punching that guy is the only, for saying the moon landing was fake, is the only thing that keeps me holding on to that it was real.
Because he's fired up about it.
He's fucking fired up.
He's like, no, bitch, I fucking did it. I was on the goddamn moon.
Yeah. Or they convinced Buzz Aldrin that he really landed on the moon. They did a Truman Show type thing.
Whoa.
And made him believe.
Wear his tinfoil cap. Good point, Kate. Wow. Next up, Princess Di's death was no accident. This is one I believe too. I think that one could happen. If King Charles now found out that his wife was getting done doggy style by the security, that's what it said, Kate. That's not me. That's the reports. If that's what happened, you could see the royal family being so embarrassed about that they take some action, right?
I don't know. Charles is weird. About Camilla, that whole thing came out where he's like, I wish I was a tampon. I was so that I could be your tampon, so I could be inside you. And she was like, ooh, that's
Do you
more
think
embarrassing.
he knew what a tampon was?
Yeah, I think he knew. He called it a Tampax. He knew the brand and everything.
Maybe
good.
so.
Shout out to him. Big feminist.
Yeah, I think I just pulled up the quote. It said, heavy flow tampon is what he actually wanted to be.
But no, I don't believe that. I think I get how people could, but I don't believe that one.
9/11 inside job.
No,
definitely not.
Definitely not. What about
this one?
I have one for you about that time frame. Mid 2000s, Britney Spears, government operative. The pop star's crises at that time, 2007, hit several important dates in which George W. Bush's presidency had big deal things going on. And so that she was an operative to distract the media from his blunders. Okay. So she announced her split from Kevin Federline the day before an important midterm election that had the power to rock the Bush administration and the party as a whole. A few months later, Bush announced the reformation of Al-Qaeda on the very same night she shaved her head.
Whoa.
Coincidence?
Probably, but she is
and pardon me, the reformation. The Al-Qaeda did not reform themselves. They reformed to attack stuff again.
This one's a personal favorite of the last couple years. Top Democrats are being involved in a child sex ring behind a pizza parlor.
Yeah, no, that was disproven. I don't believe that one. John Benet Ramsey grew up to be Katy Perry.
Whoa, I've never heard that one.
That
one's fucked up. All the ones about John Benet Ramsey.
Yes, that's fucked up.
Like, because her parents are still alive. And I know a lot of people think that they did it, but if they didn't, and
fucked up.
Having to read all those things about your kid, like whenever they got murdered.
Yeah.
Awful. COVID as a population control.
No, I do think there's some wacky stuff with that. I do think China spilled the chili pot on purpose.
Yeah. You're a China conspiracist on that one?
I think so. Yeah, I think they kind of did that a little on purpose.
A little whoopsie daisy.
I'd like to see the real. Like I used to think when I got to the pearly gates and I could ask to see one thing, because when you get up there, that's the drill. God says you can go back in history and see one thing. I wanted to see a giant asteroid hit the Earth during dinosaur times. Was my big ask.
Oh, that would be sweet.
But I float in the clouds and watch a giant asteroid hit because they have. It's been a thing. But now I think I'd like to see what happened with that.
Me too. Area 51 had a lot of aliens.
Maybe I should be wearing this tinfoil hat. Yes, I do.
I think so too. I think it's, to me, with the amount of technology and as far we can see in space, it's really incomprehensible to think that we're the only life forms in the universe. I've been reading, because I followed science on Reddit, and now I've been reading all these different posts that are about like trying to explain the size of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how any human can possibly wrap their head around how big it is when you're talking, because think about how long Babe Ruth, like just in your brain, Babe Ruth, that seems like lifetimes ago, like centuries ago in our brains. How can we possibly remember or even put in context what billions of years would look like?
I can't. You know what blows my mind even more? Remember the Wonder Years show, Paul Pfeiffer? It's Marilyn Manson.
I don't know where we're gonna go, but I like it.
It's Marilyn Manson.
Oh, now that's one I could get behind, because I also heard that the guy from Wonder Years took out a rib to suck his own dick.
I mean, he's a absolute wild character. I'm just saying, I believe a lot of this stuff starts to get you. The algorithm starts going, you start spiraling. Next thing you know, Britney Spears is an operative.
Last one I'll tell you about. This one I think is my favorite, and it just because it came from the movie Richie Rich, where there's a hidden chamber behind Mount Rushmore.
Yes.
I think so too. Why else would you have that? I mean, who just decides in South Dakota we're going to put all these people on a mountain? There's a reason.
Well, we have those storage areas where like every seed and where we have like all our original seeds for all the plants and stuff in
Oh
case
yeah.
shit does go down. Who gets to go in that? How do you pick
Isn't that in West Virginia?
I think it's way out in the boonies somewhere out west. I don't know.
All right. Well, let's get into the one that we were going to talk about today because it's another one that I hadn't heard about.
Okay. Here we go. But I'm keeping my tinfoil hat on for this. This comes to us from Alaska Landmine. But I guess it's a newspaper up there.
There's a lot of websites, and none of them are going to be. You're not getting any Reuters or AP or any of that shit from this one. It's going to come from places like Alaska Manline, conspiracytheory.com, True Thoughts, True Organization, Stop the Violence. Like there's all kinds of different crazy crackpot websites that I pulled all this from. But it's good shit.
So keep that in mind, but also take us for our word. Okay.
That's 100% true.
Yes, absolutely. On the campaign trail, congressional candidate Nick Begich III has gone to great lengths to portray himself as a reliable, practical conservative and a more steady alternative to his opponent, Sarah Palin. So in all the ads up there, he's been painting Sarah Palin as like a wild card, and he's like, go for me, I'm the same guy. But campaign filings and public documents reveal that Begich III co-owns Earth Pulse Press Incorporated, a lucrative Alaska-based publishing house that creates and promotes crackpot conspiracy theories, including the bizarre claim that the University of Alaska Fairbanks operates a massive mind control device that can manipulate populations, create earthquakes, and remotely alter the climate by beaming energy into the atmosphere. The facility in question that they're talking about, that University of Alaska Fairbanks, is a massive, massive instrument. Picture those giant fields where they put the solar panels. It's like a giant open flat piece of land like that with 180 large antennas sprawling 33 acres.
And these are huge antennas too. They're not like the ones that you put on your house for DirecTV. Like that's not what these are. These are all like 70, 80 feet up in the air with 60 feet wingspan, and they're huge. 33 acres. It takes 180 of them to be.
Yeah. So add that to its remote location and the fact that it was built as a joint project involving the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and our buddies at DARPA.
See, this is the reason why I was like, maybe, because you never know with DARPA. You really don't.
DARPA's a wild card. They're always
some of these weapons that they're talking about now, because all of this stuff was debunked in 2014, but there's weapons that they talked about in 2014 that are now weapons that we have in our arsenal. So I don't know about that.
I don't know. But basically, University of Alaska Fairbanks and the military work together for this giant area of antennas. Without a clear understanding of the science here, it's understandable that this facility could be imagined to be toying with some elemental force. And if you look at it, like picture of it, it does look like spooky and evil, kind of. It does look scary.
Nefarious, some would say.
But it's essentially just a larger, powerful version of radio frequency probes that anyone can buy in an electronics store.
I'm not buying that. Like when they say anybody can buy this stuff, that's ridiculous, Kate. Like
I follow a guy on TikTok whose backyard he just turned into this shit. You know who I'm talking about. I've sent you the links to this guy before. He's built.
Have you? I don't remember that guy.
This guy, there's this like science dude who he lives at his mom's house.
Oh yeah,
he turned his backyard into this.
I remember the eel guy that was growing the eels, or had the eels in his basement.
Yeah,
but this was different. I don't believe that you maybe a smaller version. Like back in the day when you first got an iPad or iPod, and then you had your car that only had the cassette deck in it, so you had to put the cassette in, and it had the little Bluetooth transmitter, and then you could do the radio transmission there. That kind of stuff, sure. This kind of huge radio device, no matter what you could buy at Radio Shack, it's not going to match this.
Well, then go vote for Nick Begich, because his conspiracy theory website, Earth Pulse, here's what they think that it can do. And by the way, Begich III has declared between $115,000 and $1 million in recent income, somewhere in there, potato, from this conspiracy theory site, Earth Pulse. Here's some of the things they think this giant radio wave, and it was something that we were using for communications.
Right.
There you go. But here's what they say that it can do. This guy who is claiming Sarah Palin's crazy and he's normal. electromagnetic weapons that pack an invisible wall up hundreds of times more powerful than the electrical current in a lightning bolt. One can blast enemy missiles out of the sky. Another could be used to blind soldiers on the battlefield. Another to control unruly crowds by burning the surface of their skin. You could detonate it over a large city. An electromagnetic weapon could destroy.
That one of those we have now. We have one. The one that you can control an unruly crowd by burning the surface of the skin. You could do that.
The microwave beams. Yes, they do. I would just like to point. It wouldn't it be sick if you had a gun you could point and shoot your hot pocket and it would just be ready?
Yeah,
buddy, I'd be living.
Just bring it down to my office and hover it over. Next thing you know, I got popcorn.
Shooting my cans of Chef Boyardee. I'm ready to go. Another would be to direct the weather. So they think that they are also saying this could be used. Imagine using a flood to destroy a city or tornadoes to decimate an approaching army in the desert. If an electromagnetic pulse went off over a city, all the things in your home could wink and go out. Like it would destroy all of our electronics, would be permanently destroyed. Weather modification. Then they go on to talk about top secret wartime.
Wait, we have some of those things too. Like the jammers that can go in and jam incredible amounts of communication and electromagnetic. We have it. Like we used to use it even in Iraq at the beginning. Like the chameleons. That's what those were. Like they were on the Humvees. They're like these little round objects that were planted on the front or the back of different Humvees. And because so many of the IEDs were triggered by radio frequencies, these things would be an electromagnetic pulse whenever you would go through an area that shut down all electronics near it. If you can make a small one, you can make a big one.
But it didn't destroy them forever. It just temporarily put them out. Yeah, there's some difference.
It was like, you know, when you're using your remote control, you could put tape over the little RF sensor. That's essentially what it does.
Yes, it was a much gentler version of what they're talking about. They one of their articles also said top secret wartime experiments in World War II were conducted off the coast of Auckland to perfect a tidal wave bomb. The U.S. defense chief said that if the project had been completed before the end of the war, it could have played a role as effective as the atom bomb. Details of the tsunami bomb, known as Project SEAL, are contained in 53-year-old documents that we can't get a hold of. I mean, they probably did try to do that. Remember, they tried to build a giant iceberg battleship, so they're dicking around.
They tried to put a nuclear weapon on an RPG's butt. Like, I think World War II DARPA is the definition of good initiative, bad judgment.
Yeah,
like the one we did a post on TikTok about it, where it was a helicopter that you stand on and the blades are below you, and if you fall, you get chopped to a million pieces. That's not a great weapon.
Good initiative, though. I mean, it would have been cool as shit if it worked. Long story short, in response to questions from Landmine News, Begich campaign manager Truman Reed stated that Earth Pulse was founded and run by I keep calling him Belich. It's Begich III's father, and that Begich III invested in the company to keep it operational in the mid-2000s. He's saying Begich does not hold an active day-to-day management role in the company, but they also dug up that he holds the roles of like president, vice president, whatever. He has like 15 different
CEO,
roles in the company.
A bunch of shit. It's not he's not a silent partner.
No, he's very active in it. So they're saying like, no, he has nothing to do with this stuff, but he's actually making a ton of money off this site that just peddles crazy conspiracy theories that we're going to all hear from our relatives at Thanksgiving. So I look forward to that.
That being said, like if this guy's dad was a major conspiracy theorist, it would be difficult for you not to be. Like if you were essentially indoctrinated in that truth when you're young, that is 100% what you believe.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to round number 2. This one, I put it on the sheet because I think that every single lover scorned in the military can kind of relate to this a little bit, right?
Yes, I think so. As a scorned former military lover myself. Vladimir Putin's mobilization order has failed miserably to stoke patriotism among most ordinary Russians. What do you mean, ripping their sons and husbands and fathers and all that away? That didn't work. You guys didn't like that? It appears not to have had much success on the battlefield, but there is at least one unexpected perk for some women: dealing with their deadbeat ex-husbands. Immediately after Putin's speech, the idea came to me: if my ex-husband goes to war, we would be paid back because he will get official payments into an account that can't be hidden from the courts, one woman told investigative outlet Vertska. So basically, I'm finally going to get my, what do you call it? Child support.
Child support, yeah.
I'm finally going to get my fucking child support. Identified only by the pseudonym Irina, she is one of several women who say she ratted out her ex to military officials in hopes of finally making him pay for abandoning his own child.
This is just flat out diabolical. Like, I think that not paying child support is egregious. Like, having a kid and not doing that, having your financial responsibilities and the thing, egregious.
Yes.
However, this essentially, in a lot of ways, could be a death sentence for a lot of these people, the way that this war is going. So
yeah,
it's kind of rough.
Irina said she had been young and stupid when she first got married and wound up divorcing her husband after his problems with alcohol. And he started stealing jewelry from her and her parents. There's a guy you want. We've all got a few in our battalion. Later, after she filed for divorce more than a decade ago, she learned he had used her name to take out a loan that had since left her tens of thousands of dollars in debt. So he leaves her with the kid and then he steals her money. Despite numerous court proceedings, he'd absconded on years' worth of child support and alimony payments. That's when she said she learned she wasn't the only woman wondering if Putin's mobilization and the promise of military payments might be a way to make things right. According to her, she knows dozens of other women in the same boat who started an online community to discuss the scheme. And once these women get together,
oh yeah,
and they start scooting and a pluting and a plotting, they'll get their
sinking up and all that stuff,
as they deserve. God damn it. We get together in a chat and support each other, sharing experiences and info. Right now there's about 70 people. I'm sure after this article it's gonna explode.
You gotta pump those numbers. As soon as other scorned women hear this, it's like a class action lawsuit. They're probably gonna have those commercials, like the Lejeune water commercials that are all over TV right now. They're going to have those same mesothelioma type commercials over there. But were you scorned? Did your husband or boyfriend not pay child support? Do you want him to fucking die violently so you get money? Come to our group. Yeah.
And basically she's saying, like, I'm going to go to the military recruiting station. I'm going to hand over all the info I have on him and be like, yeah, he's healthy enough to be in. Here's where I think you can find him. Go get his ass and pull him into the war. It seems to me that he won't be able to handle military action. He doesn't have enough training or strength. Of course, I thought about how I'd feel if he dies there, but my son and I already haven't seen or heard from him in 12 years, although we live in the same city. So if they do kill him, it will be good. My child will be compensated. So she's saying too, even if he dies, they'll be the ones, the kid will finally get that child support payment. He's already dead. I gotta be honest,
I don't hate that line of thinking.
No,
I really don't.
Me neither. And so basically it sounds like these women can finally blackmail the guys. Like, if you don't give me the back child support that you fucking owe me, I'm handing all your info over. I'm going to tell them where to find you. And you're going to be in Ukraine in the middle of fucking winter, bitch. So give me my fucking child support.
I don't know what you do if you're one of these fellas. If you're one of these fellas, you're turning tricks. You're doing whatever you can to get this money so she doesn't do this.
And she said, I'm not really thinking about his fate. He hasn't thought about how his daughter is living all these years, what she's eating, and if she eats at all. True. So I get it. Get him. Get him. I hope that Facebook group grows.
The last line, I don't feel sorry for him. In 4 years, not once did he get in touch with his son, even though he lives 24 miles from us. And when, despite all that, the child sees his own father and every man who he passes, I have only one thought. It's better if he dies so I can at least take my son to his grave.
Oof. I mean, it's actually really sad.
It is. And there's all these different accounts of what's going on there. Yeah. And I don't think these dudes deserve to die, but I understand the women who think that they should.
Absolutely. I think maybe they deserve it a little bit. Just a little, just dip my toe in the maybe. They do. Yeah. I don't know.
Just a little bit of maybe. All right, let's move on to round number 3. This story is wild. And I want to do a little preface because we had David Faraday on a few weeks ago. We also had the 9/11 families group that came on to talk about their opinion of Live Golf in Saudi Arabia. And if you remember from the sports world, Live Golf is a new organization for golf that's kind of like the PGA Tour, where several top golfers in the world joined that tour and left the PGA. Now they're banned from the PGA. All these guys are getting insane amount of money. And the media and really public perception in a lot of ways really looked at these guys and kind of vilified them in a lot of ways for taking this money.
Well, they called it sports washing. What Saudi Arabia does is it's the same with the F1 racing and the golf. They use sports and things that we all love to
UFC.
UFC, they kind of use that to brush away all their human rights violations, which are fucking egregious, actual real bad shit. And they use these things that we all love. So it's hard for us to be like, fuck Saudi Arabia, but this race was awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
and I don't think it was UFC. I think it's actually WWE, but whatever.
Yeah.
Is that right, Nick? I think Nick would know that if it was WWE.
Yeah.
They all, but then too, like they'll get big time influencers and TikTokers to go show they had the best week of their lives in Saudi Arabia. Like a ton of people do it because the money Saudi Arabia is willing to pay for this PR.
Just real quick on that, just to put it in perspective, for the WWE, they make like their biggest paychecks are from Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
They make more money doing those shows than they do WrestleMania. And if you want to know the proof, Shawn Michaels showed up bald in Saudi Arabia and embarrassed himself coming out of retirement after all those years. And he did it for the paycheck. So that's how big the money.
The paycheck, the money, it's huge. And so it sways people, like people who you think would normally not. It's like,
because the money's endless, Kate. Like there's
endless.
I read this report on Financial Watch that talked about the amount of money that Saudi Arabia made in the last quarter alone. This number is so staggering. In profits in one quarter, Aramco, which is the main oil company from Saudi Arabia where they get a lot of their shit from, $42 billion in profits in one quarter. That's more than Amazon, Apple, Tesla, and Google combined.
Yeah, it's a pretty thing.
They have endless money. Endless.
So though we look at, I can like honestly, I'm not like, I don't love it, but I can excuse it. Like I get being swayed by that money. If you're an athlete, if you are a celebrity, if you're whatever, I get it. Okay. However, my feeling is slightly different if it's members of our own military.
Very
high-ranking military. Okay. I feel a shift in the way I feel about it pretty strongly. So here's our next story. A new investigation by the Washington Post found that more than 500 retired military personnel have taken jobs with foreign governments since 2015, and a majority of those positions are located in North Africa or the Middle East, including consulting jobs for Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Defense.
Think about 2015. That's essentially the height of ISIS. Like ISIS is running wild, being financed by, some people say, the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia, and some say Iran and not Turkey, but some of the other countries are really putting in money here. But without question, financiers of terrorism have come from Saudi Arabia. Fuck, that's where Osama bin Laden's from.
Yeah. And I feel like it's safe to say, like, a lot of times they're like the puppet masters holding the strings of terrorist organizations throughout,
because they got the money.
And so then we spend all our time and money and blah, blah, blah as a military dealing with that. So Saudi Arabia is essentially like the puppet masters, and everything on the end of strings is like terrorist organizations that they're helping fund throughout the Middle East that in turn our U.S. military has been dealing with, and our taxpayers have been paying a ton of money to deal with. And then on the other end, our high-ranking military generals are going right back over and working with them and making a ton of money doing it. So Saudi Arabia, which has repeatedly been accused of human rights violations, has hired at least 15 retired U.S. generals and admirals as consultants for their country's defense ministry. One former Navy SEAL was hired as a special operations advisor for $258,000 a year. Saudi Arabia's offense against outside dissenters also has not stopped U.S. military officers from taking work in the country. Still, dozens of military personnel have accepted jobs contracted from Saudi Arabia since Khashoggi's killing. And did I say that right? I want to make sure
I think so. Pretty close. Yeah.
Retired General James L. Jones, who served as National Security Advisor during the Obama administration.
And not just that, like General Jones, they undersold him a lot, because General Jones was responsible for a lot of the thought that went into how we are going to approach Afghanistan and Iraq in 2003. He was the commandant of the Marine Corps. So all this stuff, it went from General Jones and then General Hagee, who was the commandant whenever I started. But Hagee took everything that Jones was doing and put it into practice. General Jones is incredibly important.
Yeah. So he served as a national security advisor during the Obama administration, has two Virginia-based consulting firms, Iron Hand Security and the Jones Group International, that have contracts with Saudi Arabia. In an interview with the Post, Jones said that he was encouraged by the Trump administration to accept more contracts from the country's defense ministry. According to Jones, his companies have 4 such contracts with 53 U.S. citizens in Riyadh. 8 are retired generals and admirals, and 32 are former lower-ranking military personnel. Nobody ever came to us and said, hey, we think you ought to pull out, Jones told the Washington Post. I don't know what the alternative would have been if we had pulled away. I was worried that the Saudis would possibly drift off to other relationships with the Chinese and Russians, and I didn't think that would be very good. So he's saying,
if we had a fucking jerk off alarm that just came whenever there's bullshit that was spewed.
If I didn't land these multi-million dollar contracts with Saudi Arabia, the Chinese and Russians could have gotten it, and that would have been real.
He did the U.S. citizens a favor by becoming filthy rich by the Saudis.
Yeah, and probably by design all throughout towards the end of his career. Under tinfoil hat, Katie again. Under the emoluments clause restrictions, the Constitution states that retired U.S. military personnel, which generally applies to those who served at least 20 years in uniform, collect pension, cannot receive consulting fees, gifts, jobs, or titles from foreign governments without expressed approval from Congress.
And so when I heard that, I'm like, how often could that possibly happen? You look at somebody like Saudi Arabia, you look at what Iran's doing, you look at Russia and China, and think about the humanitarian violations that are going on there. You would think our Congress, no matter who's in charge, if it's Republican or Democrats, they're going to look at these enemies, essentially, of the United States and be like, no, that's not a great idea for our generals to go teach them how to be militaries.
Well, the Post found that approval is almost always granted. Out of the 500 requests since 2015, 95% were approved. The Post also reported that some people negotiated jobs with foreign governments during their active duty service with the military. We're over there in the Middle East working our dicks off. And meanwhile, at the top, they're wheeling and dealing so that they can become super filthy rich when this is all over with. This is my enlisted point of view on it, which is extremely dark. So just stick with tinfoil.
No, I think that's very fair. And I think people will see that because it's like good for you, not good enough for me. And these generals are essentially acting like NBA free agency, where you're not supposed to have tampering. The Saudis are tampering with our generals before they even retire.
There is no penalty for violating the law, and enforcement of this rule is rare anyway, according to the publication. Saudi Arabia's paid advisors have included Marine General James L. Jones, Army General Keith Alexander, who led National Security Agency under Obama and Bush. Documents show they pay handsomely, so benefit packages reaching 6 and sometimes 7 figures, far more than what they earn here. We were talking about the UK pilots going to train Chinese pilots last week, and it's because of the money. At the top scale, active 4-star generals earn over $200,000 a year in basic pay here with the U.S. military. But of course, that's not enough. They can make millions and millions with these Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia hired a former Navy SEAL, again, $258,000 a year. The UAE gave annual compensation packages worth more than $200,000 to helicopter pilots, $120,000 to aircraft mechanics. So basically, even on the enlisted level, they're making a ton of money.
And that's essentially the story, like that all of that's going on. And it is incredibly frustrating to look at these titles that people had, like the National Security Advisor. That's the top national security person in the country, knows all the secrets in the country. Nobody has access to, except for the president of the United States. Nobody has more access to information than the director of national security. Like, that is General Jones and the other general that was from the Army. Them doing it and being the top intel people in the United States is legitimately insane. That's not a huge story, but Live Golf was crazy.
Yeah. And it continues my disillusionment with at our lower enlisted level, we're supposed to be like, rah, rah, blah, blah, blah. And we have no idea, meanwhile, that the guys at the very top, the reason, directing us doing all the shit we do, are just, look at the struggles that we face when we get out of the military compared to what they look forward to when they get out of the military, when their time is done compared to what our time is done. And it's because they are able to truly set themselves up in ways that make them millions and millions of dollars for the countries that are causing us all these fucking problems. It's like, again, a disillusioned tinfoil hat Katie, but it's
I don't think it's tinfoil hat Katie at all. I completely agree. And the shittiest part is that all of these generals who are directing us how to operate, when to operate, and all those things, and all the different theaters that we've been over the last 20 years, they leave service and end up in Riyadh getting $1 million contracts. The junior enlisted folks that did it end up at the VA needing care for their lungs because of burn pits. Like, the difference of post-service for these generals and the average enlisted person is bananas.
And it just like, it gives me that feeling like, oh, like this, I'm going to sound nuts, but like, oh, we are just pawns. Like,
like when you say,
I don't know.
I think you're right. Like, when you explain the military industrial complex, I think this is exactly what you mean. Like, the fact that you could go in with one of your enemies and be like, give me $1 million for this contract. Nuts. And I don't know what other way to say it. Like, really, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking wild. I feel like, dude, like if I was stationed somewhere in the Middle East and for some reason we had like a Saudi civilian working on base and I became buddy with them, I feel like I'd get in big trouble. Like,
we did. Like,
I know that's putting it very simply, but like,
you were supposed to stay out of the interpreter village whenever you were in Afghanistan, right? Like, where all the interpreters live.
Yeah, no, but I know it's different, but like, yeah, it's just crazy. Just disillusioning. Fucking A. God damn.
All right, let's move on to save rounds and alibis, where we can talk about some fun stuff, Kate, because both of our teams are in the World Series, which is huge. And today's save rounds and alibis is going to be brought to you by our friends at Morgan & Morgan. When was the last time you were in a fight? Let's be honest, most of us can't fight for shit, but now we have to. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest personal injury law firm and fights for the people. They're such badasses that they are actually the official law partner with the UFC. They're giving away 2 tickets to the upcoming UFC fight with Adesanya and Pereira at Madison Square Garden. All you have to do is go to morganufc.com and enter for your chance to win. That's morganufc.com. No purchase is necessary. Sweepstakes end on November 3rd, 2002. It's open to U.S. residents of 48 U.S. states and D.C., 18 and older. Void where prohibited. For official rules, visit morganufc.com. You're going to be able to watch. They've earned more than $15 billion for their clients. Win 2 tickets to UFC 81 at Madison Square Garden, presented by Morgan & Morgan. Just go to morganufc.com for your chance to win. Sweepstakes closes at 11:59 Eastern time on November 3rd. No purchase is necessary. It ends on November 3rd, 2022. All right, let's move into some save rounds and alibis. First, I want to talk to you about your trip with your papa to the Phillies game.
Thank you. And also, one quick caveat on that last round. Because I can be bought as well. If any of the generals listen to this show, I'm sure they all listen religiously. If you get me a pontoon boat, this will all go under the rug.
How much would they have to pay you for me, you, and Cons move to Riyadh and start Zero Block 30 over there?
Zero Block 30 Saudi Arabia version?
Yeah.
I'd do it for a cool 20 mil.
20 mil. Oh, I'm way cheaper than that.
Really?
I'd probably do it for 3. Because I think with $3 million, I could set my life up where I never had to work again. And I wouldn't come back to the United States. I would try to have like I died, and then I would go to a Pacific island and live like a king.
Okay. Well, I'll move mine to 5 then.
Okay.
Okay. But so now I just really had to think about that for a second, because I can be bought as well. So I'm not above it.
Everybody can.
I'm judging them, but I mean, I get it. I mean, we can all be pieces of shit. Okay. Yes, I got to go to the Phillies game with my dad on Friday. It was game 3 in the series for the pennant, and we won that game, which was awesome. My dad and I got there a little bit early. We just had a tiny little table, 2 hoagies, and we each had 1 beer.
Adorable.
And we went in.
It was cute as hell.
It was cute as a button. And the like tie-in is I joined the military in 2008. I left for boot camp literally the same month that the Phillies season started, that year in 2008. And that was the year they won the World Series. So the one year that I finally am gone, because I grew up going to the games with my dad. Like I grew up like actually a big Phillies fan. Like I know it's like fair weather fan Katie, but like I do care. I did grow up with it. And then I finally leave. And 2008, they won the World Series. In 2009, they made it to the playoffs, and I fucking missed it both times. So it was awesome to finally be there again with my dad, rooting him on. And when they final pitched through and we won, the stadium was shaking. The stadium was shaking. And they play this great song, Dancing on My Own. I prefer the Robin version, but what are you going to do? But it's this song that like me and my girlfriends have sung at bachelorette parties. So it's this like, but the Phillies have been singing it in the locker room after they win. Cause I guess it came on the speakers at the one game, the champagne, I'll keep dancing on my own. So it's like they're playing this game after the game on Friday. Everyone is just in such a good mood. Me and my dad are dancing to this like bachelorette party song, going up the steps to the, it was awesome. Sorry, I'm rambling.
And the Phillies have guys being dudes on their team, like Schwarber and fucking
those guys.
Bryce Harper are like guys being dudes.
I was gonna say that half that team could take some of the biggest shits you ever see.
Growlers.
That's a team take a growler. So those are guys being half the team looks like shady construction workers, which I love. Marsh, his hair is always perpetually soaked looking for some reason.
I don't get it. And it's usually a rich thing. Me and Dave Portnoy used to talk about that a lot, where that's how you know somebody is super rich if their hair looks wet all the time. like he has wet, like Shad Khan, the owner of the Jags, has like a $7 billion network.
Yeah.
His hair's always wet. I don't know how, but it's always wet.
But it was super fun. And like Friday morning, we went down to this popular Chickies and Pete's. They do like chicken tendies and these crab fries that are really good. But they were having a big
fries for those keeping score at home.
Phillies version of Good Morning America was there. And so another Barstool guy, Smitty, and I were there to show off some of the merch. It was like a giant pep rally. And the mood was just, there was Philly shaped pretzels that everyone said, or bagels that everyone said looked like dicks. But just like it was just such a great Philly day. Everyone was in such a good mood. Then last night after the final game, when Sunday night going to the World Series, all of Broad Street shuts down. The whole city came out. They were playing baseball in the middle of the street. They had they have to grease our light poles because people climb them all the time when we
I don't even know why they try that. I mean, it didn't work in 2008. It didn't work when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Like that's just not going to work.
But they did. They went around with paint rollers and they greased the poles ahead of the win. And lo and behold, everyone. So it's like, what is it at the Naval Academy when they all climb that grease
pole again?
The grease pole. We all become sailors for a minute there and everyone climbs the greasy poles. But it's just, it's so fun to see your city because like, you know, the news is so doom and gloom, and it's so fun to see your city. I was there for the Eagles parade, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it was one of the happiest days of my entire life. Mm-hmm. Everyone from all walks of life, from every part of the city, just came together and was kind and fun, and it was awesome. And it was like, oh yeah, this is who we are. This is like, so I don't know. Sports can be such a good reminder of that when we win.
Now, content, Katie, what about this? Because everybody is happy. What if you go, like, let's say the Phillies win the World Series, you go and you just try to be Debbie Downer and like interview a bunch of people just with a bunch of sad news.
And I guess we won. I think I'd get beat up, honestly.
Like, great Phillies win. But did you hear that 15 U.S. generals were actually working for Saudi Arabia?
Maybe that's what I'll do. A Katie tinfoil hat disillusionment round.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that. That'll go over great. But I'm also, so final note, the World Series is going to be going on next weekend. I'll be in Philly for the Eagles game on Sunday. So Saturday, I'll be in the city watching the game. I'm just with all my cousins. Like, it's just such a awesome, because I'll be honest, like I don't think many people expected us to make it to the World Series.
We barely made the playoffs.
We barely made the playoffs. So it's just, again, just like the Eagles underdogs. So it's just really, I'm in a good mood about sports. When does that happen? It's so rare.
No, your Eagles are great. The Phillies are great. How are the Flyers?
They're winning right now. They're actually the 76ers.
What a year for Philadelphia.
I think the Flyers are 4-0 right now, or 4-1, 4-0, 4-1. And the 76ers are the only one stinking it up right now. So it's just a treat. It's just a treat.
It is a treat.
Bad luck to your Astros. Are you and Tico gonna?
I don't know if I'm going to go up there for it. I doubt it. I mean, I think everybody knows at this point that I don't really give a fuck. So, yeah. I mean, I like when it's on and the Astros are on, I'm like, let's go Astros. But I'm not like seeking out regular season games. And that's part of the problem with baseball. They put it on these tiny little networks. And unless you have one specific service. You can't get it. Like Root
Yeah.
TV, I can't get that shit here, so I can't watch most of the games. That's
Yeah.
the reason why I don't watch, because I just wasn't able to. My save round that I came across a story from 2020 that blew my mind. And I think I missed it because it happened in April of 2020, which is right at the height of COVID, right when it was kicking off in March and April. So everybody was just paying attention to COVID related news. There is a spot in Vietnam where a bunch of people got busted because they recycled used 350,000 used, wait for it, condoms. They would go and find like where you can dispose of them. I don't even know how you get that many used condoms, like because they just go in the trash or like down the drain or something. How do you find 350,000 used condoms?
I mean, do they have brothels there?
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah,
because that's it, Kate. They go.
Are condoms that expensive that you got to do that? Then again, I'll tell you something. People do this stuff. When I worked concessions at Wells Fargo, the circus came through and they said, we'll do our own concessions for the most part. Thanks. And then between shows, what did we catch them doing? Digging through the fucking trash cans, picking out the old popcorn boxes and stuff and reusing them for the next crowds that came through. And we had to say, please don't. Please don't.
And that's when you were the manager, right? You couldn't tolerate that.
All those signs that say homemade fresh squeezed lemonade, we found them using like a rusty old hose behind the stadium, filling up coolers and then just throwing lemons in it.
Yeah, but there's nothing like hose water, Kate. Everybody knows that.
That's true.
You're right. Like if you're like, this lemonade's fantastic because it's mixed with the best water there is.
I think
it goes Iceland and then it goes hose.
The hose behind my house growing up was in a patch of mint leaves.
Oh.
So you'd pick up the hose. I know.
Wow.
Some wild strawberries growing around it, and you'd pick up the hose. Oh my
God.
I know. And it was in the shade, so it was nice and cool. The smell of mint would come up. You'd turn on the hose. You'd be hit with this mint blast of ice water.
It's like being in a spa in your backyard.
Buddy, it was. I'm telling you.
I mean, I remember the first time I went to a really nice spa, and they had limes and lemons and strawberries and pineapple in their water, like before you would go in the back. I must have drank me about 21 of those things. And that day, I just fucking crushed them.
I promise you, if there was like a restaurant in Brooklyn where they had a bunch of old hoses out front and you got to drink from the hose to like elicit a summer memory from your childhood, I feel like people would pay big money to do it.
Okay, imagine.
What if we start a restaurant where we just feed everyone through hoses? Okay.
But we feed them like they're kids, because you could target millennials, older millennials like me, where you have a picnic table that has one of those holes for the umbrella, but instead of the umbrella, 4 hoses come out. Everybody gets their own hose that they could turn on and drink straight from the hose. You could put a little cap on it for sanitary reasons, but you have that. The only thing on the menu is like peanut butter and jelly, hot dogs that have been boiled, bologna sandwiches, Kool-Aid. You could have all those Cheetos. You could have all those different snacks and you could hang out. That would be a hit.
And then there's a pool, and we are like, don't. And then I'll sit there and the lifeguard saying, well, you got to wait 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
If
right.
you just ate a PB&J, you got to wait 30 minutes so you don't cramp up in there.
And depending on how big our budget is, we could also put a lazy river around it.
Oh, 100%. That sounds lovely.
All right, Nick, what about you? Any save rounds?
Yeah, I got a couple things. So first off, I'm pretty confident I'm a bigger Astros fan than you at this point.
Okay.
If you follow me, you know that today is a big day for me. It's Yankee Elimination Day. Everyone's celebrating across the universe. The realm is safe, and we can all continue our lives. With that said, I sent you guys a photo in the group chat that I'd like you to look at. So one of our fellow producers, Nick Fasoli, some of you may know who he is. He does a lot of work at Barstool. He's incredible. But he tried to tag the old ZBT, trying to get a grade on his bed making ability because he got up early. I know bed making, at least I think from like, I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I assume it's something you guys did, right?
Oh yeah, it's a big deal.
Can you grade his bed making ability and what would happen if he showed up with that on base?
I think that's one of the times that they would probably institute a rule called failure to adapt. I feel like if that was your rack, they would just be like, you're not cut out like for this. If this is what you're doing on a regular basis, you just gotta go.
Yeah, it looks like there was 4 snakes in the bed and he left them in the bed and covered the bed loosely. It's egregious that he tagged us.
It really is.
It is egregious. I
Failed
tell you,
field day.
I'm a slop of a human being. I can make a bed. I will say this about the military. I can make a bed like a motherfucker.
And clean, like attention to detail clean.
You know how you wrap you ever see a Christmas present wrapped real perfect and things are folded and tucked in such a way? I can make a bed like a tight ass Christmas present if I want. You could bounce a quarter off it. So yes, it's egregious. The story's a delight, but
yeah, he was really proud of himself. I actually do think like the way his brain operates that he was excited to tag because he was up early and he made his bed. And I was like, this is a bad move. So
that's not a bed of a guy who consistently makes his bed.
No, that's someone who wanted to, get the old clout ski from the, from the big pod.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
Okay.
What else?
That's it. I'm all set. Thank you guys. Subscribe to the YouTube. That's it.
All right, one more thing. Last note.
Oh wait, I have a couple things.
More
we
things.
got sorry, we were talking so much about our hose. Oh, me and thought the Phillies. Sorry, my brain's just real quick. This afternoon, I'm heading back down to the Philly area to VFW Post 6956 that is on the Schuylkill River right outside Philadelphia. And during Hurricane Ida last year that came up the East Coast, their VFW flooded all the way up to the roof. And it's this beautiful, it's this cute. I actually drove by it on the way to the game the other day. It's as cute as a button. Little VFW post on the river with a beautiful little patch of grass. Like, the VFW outdoor space is key to have. And theirs is just awesome. But it's a real hub of the community down there. Ever since it got flooded all the way up to the roof last year, it was like a once in 100 years flood, like freak thing. They have been rebuilding it themselves, like coming in on the weekends, taking the time.
Long time tooling in it.
I asked them, how have you been fundraising for this? And they've had 4 beef and beers. Is how they don't know. I just told them the other day, I'm like, you got to set up a GoFundMe, like start using the internet. Cause but it's been a real hub of the community for them, for veterans from all age groups, all different wars, but it's been a real hub. So they've been working really hard on it. So hopefully we have something cool coming with them. I'm going to go shoot a thing down there with them today because we have the Veterans Day basketball tournament with Barstool. If you are a veteran in the Philadelphia area, and you want to come to this game, the Barstool Classic on November 11th, it's on a Friday night on Veterans Day night. If you want to come hang out with us, Chaps, Cons, and I will be there. The whole crew will be there. Everyone from Barstool is going to be there. We're the halftime show, the announcers, everything. I think Frank the Tank's going to be making hot dogs for everybody.
It might be the event that has the most Barstool people that we've had ever. Yeah.
Everyone's going to be there. If you are in the Philly area and you want to go and you want tickets for you, but you're like, oh no, but what about my family? Blah, blah. Hit me up. Okay. Hit up the ZBT, email Captain Cons. What's his email address?
Cons@barstoolsports.com.
Email
cons@barstoolsports.com. You can DM him at Captain Cons on Twitter or Instagram. So it'd be real easy to let Cons know.
And we will link up with you to get you hooked up with the tickets that you need, all the tickets you need for it. So Barstool Sports wants to do that. They want veterans to be able to go to the game for free on Veterans Day. And they said their families and stuff can be included too, which is freaking awesome. It's going to be an awesome event. So yeah, that's it for me.
That was it. That was going to be my last note too about the Philly basketball tournament. No, you did a good job. So we'll see you guys back here on Thursday. Cons was out. He had some other things going on, but the whole crew will be back together on the Friday episode. We'll see you then. It's on the retreat.